Okay, so let's just start with our second LOS, interest rates and time value of money. Let's see what we are going to study in this LOS. Interpret interest rate as required rate of return, discount rate, or opportunity cost. Interest rate can be viewed by three broad names: required rate of return, discount rate, or opportunity cost. This is what we have already studied. I've already explained in the overview of the chapter. Explain an interest rate as the sum of the real risk-free rate and premiums that compensate investor for bearing distinct types of risk. We studied this part using Adani corporate bond example, wherein I took an example of 13% interest. Right? How did we get to that 13% interest? This is basically explanation to this part. We are going to do this once again. So let's just start. Interest rate is denoted by R in the CFA syllabus. Interest rate is often denoted by R in your CFA syllabus, either this R or this R. It can be thought as price tag of money. Interest rate can be thought as price tag of money. If price tag is expensive, that means interest rate is higher, it is expensive to borrow money. If price tag is low, interest rate is low, it is cheaper to borrow money. Three names are given: required rate of return, discount rate, and opportunity cost. Let me just explain it once again to you. Required rate of return. So what is required rate of return? If I have a required rate of return, say suppose 12%, and Reliance share is going to give me a return of 15%, then I'll be investing in that asset class, then in that equity share. If I have a required rate of return, say suppose 10%, and TCS is giving me return of 7%, then will I be investing in that TCS share? No, right? So this is suppose required rate of return. If your expectation is that the particular asset class is going to give you this much return, then you can invest this much, you can invest, but not this much, right? If you are expecting that required rate of return is higher and the expectation from that particular asset class is lower, then you won't be investing in that asset class. You will be only investing if your required rate of return is this and your expectation to that particular asset class is higher to your required rate of return. All right. Now, required rate of return can depend upon three things: risk, alternatives available, and personal expectation. What is the risk associated with that particular asset class? So yeah, different types of asset classes are available in the market. You can invest in various kinds of asset class. You can invest in real estate. You can invest in equities. You can invest in bonds. You can invest in commodities. Now, each of these different asset class have different kinds of risk associated with it, right? I may not have the same required return when I'm investing in real estate and when I'm investing in equities or when I'm investing in bonds. Bonds are relatively a safer asset class because the borrower is promising you to repay your money back, whereas in equities there is no such assurance. So in equities, required rate of return can be much higher than compared to bonds. All right. So this is what this explain risk. It can be different with different asset classes. Required rate of return can differ depending upon the risk of that asset class. If the asset class is a risky asset, then required rate of return can go higher. If the asset class is a less risky or safer, then required rate of return can be lower. Now, depending upon the alternatives available, what are the alternatives available? All right. So required rate of return depends upon that as well. If say suppose there are only two asset classes available. All right. Only two asset classes are available. Either equities or bonds. All right. Only two asset classes are available. Then I have some extra money. I have to invest it somewhere or the other. All right. I can't keep my money idle. Otherwise, it will lose value due to inflation and all of the other stuff. It can get stolen, lose its value. All of the things can happen. I want to invest my money. All right. I have only two options available: equities and bonds. Bond is yielding me, say, suppose 4% return. Equity is yielding me 8% return. So naturally, I can't have a required rate of returns of more than 8% because no as such asset class is available for me to invest. Getting my point? Now, say suppose lot of alternatives are available. Now, say suppose equities are also available, bonds are also available, commodity is also available, real estate is also available. Now I have plenty of options available. Equity is yielding me 8%, bond is yielding me 4%, commodity is yielding me, say suppose 9%, real estate is yielding me 11%. Now, at least now I have an option to earn more than 8%. So my required rate of return can be more. Getting my point? Because real estate and commodities are some of the asset classes which are available to me if I have a required rate of return of more than 8%. So yeah, if more options are available, my required rate of return can be more. If less options are available, my required rate of return can reduce. All right. Required rate of return also depends upon the personal expectation. What are my personal expectation? If I am a risk averse investor, all right, I don't like to take risk. I'm very much scared of losing money. Then my required rate of return can be much higher. If I'm a risk taker, I'm a risk seeker, I enjoy taking risk, then my required rate of return can be much lower. I would like to invest in penny stocks. That's my passion. All right. So my required rate of return can be much lower. If there is an investor, say suppose, sorry, what is this? Okay, just ignore it. Say suppose risk averse, afraid of losing money. And and this investor wants to invest in penny stocks, lower quality stocks, cheap stocks. All right. Chances of losing money is high. And this investor is already very afraid of losing money. So the required rate of return, if if this guy is investing in penny stocks, would be much higher. On the other hand, if the investor is a risk seeker, he likes to take risk, and penny stocks are an option, he can invest in that asset. Required rate of return would be lesser than what a risk averse investor would be expecting to it. So it depends upon the personal expectation as well. All right. Now moving ahead, discount rate. What is discount rate? Used to convert future cash flows into present value. Discount rate is used to convert the future cash flows into present value. How do we get to intrinsic value of a particular asset class? We just discount the all the future cash flows which are going to come from that particular asset class. We discount that. So used to convert the future cash flows into present value. Future money is worth how much today? We get through using discount rate. Let's just take an example. We'll get it. You are promised 10,000 after 1 year. Your required rate of return is 5.26. Now you calculate it. Present value is 10,000 divided by 1.0526 is equals to 9,500. So 1.0526 is basically what? Discount rate. Just a minute. So 1.0526 is basically discount rate. I took an example of treasury bill wherein 9500 you were giving today, 10,000 is the amount that government will return you. You discounted it using the appropriate rate to get the value. This 9500, this is basically discount rate. Now I hope you are clear why are we using this 1.0526, as in the required rate of return is 5.26, then why did we divide it by 1.0526? This is basically a factor of 5.26%. All right, getting my point? Like, just a minute, let me just explain to you in a much clearer way. Say suppose what is the amount that I will get if I get a interest of 10% on 100,000. What will be my actual amount after 1 year? Say suppose 10% is the interest I will get after 1 year on this amount. What will be the amount at the end of tenure? So basically 10%, what you will do is 10% divide into this, you will get 10,000. 10,000 is the interest plus principal. All right, so your total amount becomes 1 point this. All right, 110,000 your amount will become. You could have done like this also. What is 10%? I could have made the factor of 10%. Basically 10% can be written as 10 divided by 100. What is it? 0.10. Now if I add 1, it becomes a factor 1.10. Now 1.10 into the principal amount gives me 1,10,000 or 110,000. So I could have done like this also. So this is how we will make the factors of the percentage form in the CFA curriculum, right? We often divide it or discount it by factors. All right, this one is added just to protect the principal amount. Okay, so we don't have to add the principal amount again. All right, so this one part is added to protect the principal amount. I hope this factor thing is clear to you. So discount rate, got it? It gives you the present value of all the future cash flows. Opportunity cost, I've already told you, I have two options. Either I can go on a vacation or I could have invested that money into a bank fixed deposit. The amount that I'm losing if I'm going on a vacation and I'm not investing in a fixed deposit, the interest that I'm losing is an opportunity cost. It is not clearly visible to you, but it should be considered. All right, I am a CFA charter holder. I could have worked in an MNC, but I am here teaching you. Some kind of opportunity cost is involved. I could have gone and worked in an MNC, in a corporate. I could have earned a handsome salary, but now I'm teaching you. All right. So the thing which I'm losing, the salaries that I'm losing, if I could have worked in an MNC, that's an opportunity cost to me. All right. So simple opportunity cost. I hope opportunity cost is clear. So connection between all three, same 5.26 can be viewed, same thing can be viewed as required rate of return, discounted, and opportunity cost. Concepts is basically the same. Now we move ahead to determinants of interest rate. How do we determine the interest rate in an economy? Now interest rate is denoted by R. You know that interest rate can be viewed as a factor of supply and demand thing. All right, supply and demand plays a huge role when deciding the interest rates. If demand of money is more and supply is less, then interest rate would be higher. All right, if demand is more of money and supply is less, then the person who is borrowing the money will have to pay more interest, or the person who is supplying the money, okay, who is lending the money, will be demanding higher interest rate from the borrower. All right, because he knows he have a scarce commodity. Demand is high and supply is low. He has a scarce commodity. So naturally he will be demanding more return in the form of interest. So interest rate would be higher if demand is higher of money and supply is lower. If supply is high and demand is low, then interest rate would be lower in an economy. All right. Now interest rate can be a factor of few premiums: real risk-free interest rate, inflation premium, default premium, liquidity premium, and maturity premium. We have discussed all of these premiums once in the overview of the chapter. Let's just do it again. Suppose you lend 100,000 to a company to decide the interest rates. You add the following. So suppose now you have invested in a corporate bond 100,000, and now you are deciding what interest rate should the company give me, because you have lended the money $100,000. You need some compensation, right? You need some interest. Now you're deciding that interest amount, interest percentage. What should be the interest percentage that you should get because you have lended the money? All right, now to decide that, you will be adding several of the factors, first being the real risk free rate, because now you are not consuming that $100,000. You are lending you are lending the money, you are not consuming it. You could have consumed it and enjoyed the product or services. You have foregone that consumption, so you naturally demand some kind of compensation to it, that is real risk free rate. So suppose your real risk free rate is 2%. All right, inflation premium, money losing its power. All right, money will naturally lose its purchasing power during the life of this bond. So say suppose inflation is suppose 5%. Now you want that your principal should get protected. So yeah, you want the compensation for inflation premium as well. So say suppose 5% is your inflation premium. Third being the default risk premium. What if this company corporate bond defaults? It doesn't repay you the actual 100,000 that you have invested. All right, it defaults. It doesn't even give you the interest nor the principal amount. You are afraid of that. You need some kind of compensation to that. That is basically default risk premium, risk that the company may not repay. You demand a 3% compensation to that. Liquidity premium, risk of not being able to sell the asset quickly. If you are not able to sell that asset, you invested in that corporate bond, and in between the life of the bond you needed the money back, but you are not able to sell that corporate bond. All right, if you are able to sell it, you are able to sell it at a deep discount. You need a compensation to that, because you won't be able to sell that asset during the life of the bond. All right, what if you needed money during that phase? You need a compensation to that. That is basically liquidity premium of not being able to sell that asset at a right valuation whenever you want. So basically, yeah. So that is liquidity premium. So you demand a 1% liquidity premium to it. Now what is maturity premium? Longer maturity increases uncertainty. We have I have explained it. Two asset classes are available, one with a lock-in period of 1 year, another with a lock-in period of 20 years. All right. Which one would you like to invest in? Obviously, 1%, 1 year one. All right. Maturity which have a bond which have a maturity of 1 year. All right. You don't want your money to get locked in for 20 years. All right. If your money gets locked for a longer period, you need a maturity premium to that. So suppose maturity premium is 2%. Now we just total it. All right, just total it. 2 plus 5 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2 will give you the total interest rate. All right. So that is 13%. All right. This is how you will calculate the interest rate of the corporate bond. Now, as we move ahead in the program, you will get to learn a lot of stuff. I know this is kind of a beginning and you won't be able to understand all of these stuffs together. But yeah, as the course progress, we'll be able to understand it. What is nominal risk-free rate? Include real risk-free rate plus inflation premium. Nominal rate. All of the things in our day-to-day life are reported in nominal rate only. All right. Say suppose bank is offering me an interest rate on fixed deposit of 7%. That also includes a real rate plus inflation premium. Say suppose real rate is 2%, inflation is 5%. All right. This also is a form of a nominal rate. Every instrument that is quoted into the market is often quoted in nominal terms. All right. That basically includes real rate plus inflation premium. So how do we calculate the nominal risk-free rate? In approximation terms, it is used as real rate plus inflation. Say suppose real rate is 2% plus inflation. Say suppose 5%. So this is just 7%. But in actual term, the exact formula is when you make the factor of it. Say suppose 1.02% into 1.05% when you make a factor of it. All right, just a minute. I'll just give you the exact thing. How do we calculate? So just suppose 1.02 into 1.05 gives you 1.010. Now we deduct the one part, the principal part, which is denoted by 1. This will give you 7.1%. This is in percentage form. All right, into 100 will give you 7.1%. All right, so this is the exact formula of nominal rate. All right. Now let's do an example. This example is taken from the core itself. Let's look at this example. You will understand a lot of things through this example. Now don't look at the answers. Huh? So this table gives you information about the five debt securities. Okay, five bonds. Okay, five debt securities. All five instruments, all five investment promises only a single payment at maturity. Only single payment, no interest rates and all, no interest premiums and all during the course. Only you will get the final amount. All right. Assume that premium relating to inflation, liquidity premium, and default risk are constant across all time horizon. So premiums are constant. All right. Uh, so question 1 is explain the difference between the interest rates offered by investment 1 and investment 2. What is the difference between the interest rates offered by investment 1 and investment 2? Let's carefully look at the investment 1 and investment 2 first. Investment 1, investment 2. All right, maturity 2 years. 2 years maturity is basically same. Just a minute. Maturity is same, 2 years, 2 years. liquidity is different. Higher liquidity, lower liquidity. For lower liquidity, I would require some kind of a premium, right? Some kind of a compensation. I will demand a higher interest rate. All right. For lower liquidity, for higher liquidity, I can sell off my asset whenever I want to, but in lower liquidity, I won't be able to sell the asset whenever I wish to. If I am able to sell it, I am able to sell it at a deep discount. All right. So I need a compensation to that. So yeah, explain the difference. What is the difference? The difference is 0.5%. This is because of the liquidity. All right, liquidity premium. This is because of liquidity premium. Investment 1 is offering me 2%. Investment 2 will be offering me 2.5% because investment 2 is lower liquid, has lower liquidity. All right, I won't be able to sell that asset at an exact valuation whenever I wish to. So 0.5% is the liquidity premium. Estimate the default risk premium affecting all securities. What is the default risk premium? What if the company fails to return my principal or the interest which the company has promised me to pay? All right. So that is basically default risk premium. Now, in all of these securities, if you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, default risk is relatively lower. Lower. Only in fifth security, only in fifth instrument, default risk is high. All right. And in fourth and fifth security, maturity is same, liquidity is high and liquidity is low. All right, so we need to adjust this part for liquidity first. Adjust this part for liquidity. As if now the liquidity is high. What if I make this liquidity low? If I make this liquidity low of instrument, then it has to have give me a higher interest rate. We calculated the liquidity premium as 0.5% in the earlier question. All right, so if this instrument had a liquidity which is lower, not the high one but the low one, we need to add 0.5 to it to adjust for the liquidity premium. So suppose now 4.5. Now this bond has 8 years of maturity, low liquidity, 8 years of maturity, lower liquidity and low default risk, then the premium would be 4.5. I have reduced the liquidity, all right, and added 0.5 for the compensation to it. So now it is 4.5. And now these 4 and 5 instruments are almost same now, because 8 and 8 liquidity is low. If I have made the 4.5 compensation to it, now liquidity is also low and default risk is low in the fourth one and high in the fifth one. All right, 4.5. All right, I'll just make a new one. 8 years, 8 years. Now liquidity is low, default risk is low, high, and interest rate is now 4.5 and 6.5. What? And 6.5. Just a minute. Interest rate is now 6.5. So now this is default. So now default premium is basically 2%. Getting my point? I have just made this bond fourth instrument, liquidity low, added 0.5 to it. to compensate for the liquidity. Now the interest rate is 4.5, and now I have compared it. Okay, so now this bond, fourth one and fifth one, the difference is only between the default risk. Okay, the fourth one has low default risk and fifth one has high default risk, and interest rate is now 4.5 and 6.5. So yeah, so difference between the default risk is 2% is for the compensation for the default risk. All right, and hope this is clear to you. Now let's move ahead. What is the third question? Calculate the upper and the lower limit for unknown interest rate for investment 3R3. What should be the upper limit and the lower limit for this one? For third investment, what should be the ideal interest rate? You need to calculate the lower limit and upper limit. Let's see. Maturity is 7 years. Liquidity is low. Default risk is low. This is also third one is also having low liquidity, default risk is low. Second one is also having low liquidity and default risk is low. Maturity is 2 years, and in third instrument, maturity is 7 years. So if I consider the maturity premium one, maturity compensation part, lower one should be at least 2.5%. At least I should get 2.5% if I am not considering the maturity premium as well, because third instrument will have a maturity premium attached to it, because it is a longer tenure bond. Some maturity premium have to be given to it. All right. And the second bond, all right, second corporate bond or the bond instrument is having a 2 years maturity. All right. Liquidity is also, default risk is also low, and it is yielding me 2.5%. And third one, liquidity is also low, default risk is also low. So both the in second and third, liquidity and default risk is same. Only the maturity premium difference. Only the maturity premium compensation differs. All right. So I at least need 2.5% from the third bond. Lower limit should be 2.5%. What should be the upper limit? Upper limit. Now consider the fourth bond. We did calculated 4.5% if I compensate for the liquidity part. All right. If this bond was liquid, then if this bond's liquidity was lower, then the then the interest rate should be 4.5%. Third bond also have lower liquidity and lower default risk, and fourth one now with the interest rate of 4.5% have a liquidity which is lower, and default risk is also lower. Interest rate is 4.5. So upper limit should be 4.5. All right. Because 7 years maturity would have a compensation which would be lower than the compensation demanded by 8 years maturity. So upper limit should be 4.5. All right. So this is how we can do these types of questions. You need to adjust liquidity and maturity premium parts. All right. So the upper limit is 2.5%. Oh, sorry, the lower limit is 2.5% and the upper limit is 4.5%. All right, you can go through the answers on your own. So in next class, now we will discuss rates of return. Okay, that's third LOS. We're going to discuss in the next lecture. Okay, so if you have any doubt regarding this lecture, you can just directly contact me and help you out. Thank you.